Hi everyone, I'm Gina Gleason with the Real Impact team at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills, and I'm so excited to bring to you the Real Impact Town Hall with very special guests today, and I will introduce them in a moment, but we just want to make sure that you are tuning in every month for our Friday evening events live online, and so that you can share them with family and friends, because we're going to be talking about some really important issues, not only today, but at every Real Impact Town Hall. And we always want to keep you up on all the things that are taking place in Sacramento, especially legislation, because coming from California, you know what comes out of Sacramento, and it isn't always something that we support. So I'd like to start off by giving you an update very quickly about what's going on with some of the legislation that we've been fighting in Sacramento. I wish we had a lot of good legislation that we could support, but we have so many bills coming out of the legislature that it is just nonstop, and we're doing our best to keep you informed and equip you to be influencers in this state, in your community. And so I want to make sure that everybody is following us on realimpact.us, where you can get the latest updates about what's happening in Sacramento, and we can be citizens who are standing for righteousness in the public square. So let's start off by talking about some of the really big things that have been coming out of Sacramento. And if you've been following us, you know that we have been fighting 2223, AB 2223. It is the bill that started off legalizing infanticide. I know that a lot of you already know that it's true. They were trying to legalize infanticide in California. But because you pushed back so hard that the legislators in Sacramento had to amend the bill, and they took the infanticide portion out of that bill. It's still a bad bill. We're still going to oppose it for many reasons, and I'm not going to go through the list of why we're still opposing the bill, but it's something that we're going to continue to work on and hopefully defeat this bill, and so that it does not become law in California. But, you know, in California, Gavin Newsom has decided that he is going to make California an abortion destination for women across the country. We're going to talk about that a little bit more, but he is doing everything that he can to push legislation through Sacramento to make California a state that is just going to allow pretty much anything that comes to abortion. And we have to be active, alert, and fighting these terrible bills. So 2223 was amended. It's a victory for us, but it's not a complete victory because this bill is still alive. Then let's talk about SB 866. SB 866 is another terrible bill that will allow our public school children to be vaccinated. The bill started off with the age limit of 12 years old being vaccinated in our schools, but it was amended recently and they upped the age to 15 years old. It's still a bad bill. We are still fighting it. We don't want our 15-year-olds to be vaccinated, but that is going to be something that they'll be able to do without parental consent. So take a look at our website for updates on that and what you can do to fight it. Then we have another bill that we're talking about, SB 1142. And like I said, Gavin Newsom wants California to be an abortion destination for women across the country. And this is the bill that will fund women coming to California paid by taxpayer dollars. So you could live in Texas or Virginia or any other state in the nation. And if you wanted to come have an abortion in California, taxpayers are going to pay for it. Your airfare, your child care if you have children, the actual abortion procedure, gas money, you name it, Californians will be funding abortions for women across the country. So that's SB 1142. Then we have SB 1302 that is going to give $1 billion, believe it or not, $1 billion to fund wellness centers in California. And I don't want to say too much about that, but that is going to be establishing health centers for our high school students regarding sexual health, reproductive health, mental health, lifestyle, you name it. And we're going to be talking about that in more detail with Kelly in a few moments. And then finally, SCA 10. This is going to make our Constitution in California, they're going to add the right to abortion in the state of California. The thing about abortions in California, it's not, the 6-week abortion, the 12-week abortion. They are talking about abortion that can be done when it's moments before a child being born, sometimes called partial birth abortion, late-term abortion. But the thought of a baby being born in 5 seconds, but at that point, an abortion can be done. It's as gruesome as it sounds. It's legal in California. It's being done in California. And they want to make this an amendment to the California Constitution. California has some of the most lenient abortion laws in the nation, but they're not satisfied. They're pushing every way that they can to think of how they can enshrine abortion in this state. And there's going to be plenty of other states that will outlaw abortion as a result of Roe versus Wade. But now they're all going to come to California. And taxpayers, you're paying for it. So we're going to talk more about that later, because this is something that we are not going to remain silent on. We at Real Impact will do everything that we can within our power, with our influence, to fight against this, because it's going to be on the November ballot. This November, when you go to vote, you're going to have to decide if you want abortion enshrined in our state constitution. So we'll talk more about that as the weeks go on and as election time nears. But these are some of the really important bills that you need to know about. So you need to make sure that you are following us at Real Impact US. Also, you can follow us by getting our app. We have an app, so you can go to your app store and download our app. You can follow us on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and we put out a lot of information that's going to help keep you informed, so you can talk to family and friends about some of these really important bills that we are following here in the state of California. So that's our update for now. We have a long list, probably 30 bills that we're following that we don't like. We can't list them all, but I want to put that on you to make sure that you are well informed and know what's going on in the state. So now we're going to transition into our guests, and this is the fun part. These are people who have stepped up and have gotten involved in their various areas of calling, and they are doing their best to make sure that you know what's going on either in their districts or just overall, as in Kelly's case with California schools. So we're going to start off by talking to 2 candidates that are running in the state of California. They've made it past the primary that was just held in June, and they are going to be on the November ballot. It's very exciting because we've had some really great candidates make it onto the November ballot. And so I'm so glad, because I'm going to be bringing candidates to you every town hall so that you can get to know them better. The best thing about it is not only have I invited these 2 candidates, I'm inviting their competition to also come onto Real Impact and have a discussion about what they believe. And I think that's the best way to do it, and give these great candidates a platform. But first we're going to start with Eric Ching. Eric is a local candidate who's running for Congress, and he is someone who's been very involved in his community. He's been on the Walnut City Council, served as mayor, and has just been really fighting the good fight. So instead of reading Eric's bio, I really like people to hear from the candidate themselves. So tell me a little bit about your district and why you're running, Eric.
Sure, thank you for inviting me. But of course, we have to thank God for allowing us to be here. 30th Congressional District, if you just take the freeway, 60 freeway, 57 and 60 south, 605 South, so that covers the basic area. But if you just go along, there's Diamond Bar, Walnut, Jacinta Heights, Roland Heights. If you go south, we have Whittier, La Habra, Santa Fe Spring, Norwalk, La Habra Heights, just to name a few. So if you live in the area, but I think the best thing is if you see me on the ballot, please vote for me.
Okay, that's
Yes.
great. Tell us a little bit about your family background.
Sure, I came from Taiwan, 1982, December 23rd. This is my 40th year. When I came over here, I didn't speak much English, so I had to learn my hard way and then work hard. My first job, I washed dishes for maybe a year, and then I went to Nebraska. I wanted to learn English, and that's how I believe in working hard and just do the best I could. And then looking at our country, this is surely very different than when I first came over. And then I served as council member and mayor for 10 years in Walnut. In city of Walnut, I have to brag a little bit. We don't have any pothole, not one. No
That's
graffiti.
nice.
We have 198% reserve in our banks. So we can operate 2 years without any revenue. So because it's not our money, it's people's money. We want to be as responsible as we can be. And Walnut is one of the safest because we have installed some policies. In fact, I introduced a camera system in our city. With that system, as you drive by, if your car is involved in any type of crime, our system will know within a few seconds. And that information gets sent to all the patrol car in 10 seconds. So that way we can deter criminals from coming to our city. And we just want to make sure that the government's job is serve and protect. And that's our job. Our job is not to fight. Earlier you mentioned that we're fighting Sacramento. That's completely wrong. Sacramento should serve us, not the other way around. So,
Absolutely. So, but why is it that you feel that, you've been serving in city council and been making a difference. Why did you decide to run for Congress?
well, God had called. I didn't even know why we were running for Congress. Not even, a little over a year ago. I heard a calling. A voice tells me to get rid of my business. Last year, I owned an IT company for over 25 years. I heard a voice that was very strong, so I didn't know why, but I obeyed. I gave it away last year, not knowing that I would be running for office this year. And then through this, I saw some visions, especially after the last election. And then there's some things that I didn't like. And then the representative we helped to get elected in many positions did not represent us. So I asked Lord, if this is what you want me to do, please give me a slogan. I struggled myself for weeks. I couldn't come up with anything. And one day as I pray in my church, and I said, Lord, please give it to me today. And boom, within a minute, he gave it to me. It's called You First. Of course, I got to put him first, put people's interests first. So I'm not running Eric Ching for Congress campaign. I'm running the You First campaign. That is to serve Lord and serve people's interest. And then now we are very happy that we have 3 other candidates. I want to use that slogan, and one of them is Jessica Martinez.
Okay. Okay, good. So tell me how it's going as far as the district makeup. Sometimes we have districts that seem to lean over to the Democrat Party, and the Republican Party candidate sometimes struggles. Tell us about how you are getting the word out about your race, and we don't have to mention your competition, but what you're doing to get the word out as far as what you stand for.
I think people are fed up, and we've been working very hard because we go to every neighborhood, and we communicate to moms, dad, business people. They can see that if you look around, this is not good for them, right? You're talking about crime. Who's happy about the crime situation now? Education. Right. You just mentioned a few things. I think we're going to hear from Kelly later on. In our economy, who likes to continue to see skyrocketing prices, anything. So with my background in business and also my background serving local, I think I can do a very good job. Especially, I won't be a sellout.
Good.
I have enough to live. I don't have to do this. This is not comfortable. But I would not stop until God tells me so. Because this is my duty. I love my country so much. I will not sit idle if I can still continue to contribute.
Okay. I just love all that. I love what you're saying. But tell me about your district, some of the biggest challenges in your district.
With our district, we have about 63% Latino and about 23% Asian, and then we have Caucasian as well. But I think based on the last election result, all 4 candidates made it through our primary, all four of us. So that tells me that we're doing something right. People are fed up. I mean, if you look at the previous elections, the opposition should be winning maybe about 70%. That's based on history. But now they're not doing it. In fact, one of our candidates is actually the top vote getter, and the other one is neck to neck, maybe split by only a few votes. I'm behind by a little bit, but not that much. So you can see that, but our opposition has been there for a long time. They have, resources. They have, political support. But even with that, we're against that. But, we just have to realize they're facing God. They're not facing us. They're not fighting us. So we believe that as long as we stand by God, stand by people, and we'll be fine.
Okay, so once you make it and you get into Congress and you go to Washington, D.C., what are some of your primary focuses? What do you want to have a hand in? What do you want to implement?
Yes, I think first thing first, I don't believe they're following our Constitution. That's the number one priority. They cannot, Congress cannot just, do as they wish. That's first thing. And second thing I want to contribute is the three things I talk about: safety, education, and economy. I don't believe that our 5-year-old should be taught, that he or she can change their sex if we don't have any say-so. And then obviously I want to address criminal issues. Our DA is not prosecuting, and that's no good for us. Also, I want to contribute informed policy. Look at me. I know how to deal with China. I came from Taiwan. I work in Chinese companies. I know how they operate. Oftentimes I see our congressional members making policy. They don't really understand impact. Look at, if they've sanctioned China, sanctioned Russia, and then look at the impact on us. Because they don't know how to deal with them, and I do. I think the best way to deal with it is not to call them enemies. I think there's a better way to do it. You want to win, you have to understand them. So I think there's a different approach to that. Right. And then I think I can contribute quite a bit there.
Okay, so, we don't ever want to assume that we know exactly what a candidate stands for, but I know that you're pro-life. So tell us a little bit about your views on that.
Yes, I'm very pro-life. I believe life starts at inception. If you, I just borrowed this line from Ben Shapiro. And he said that if you find a cell on Mars, right, that's a life. Then we have this multi-cell would carry different DNA in a woman's body, and that's not a life. To me, that's bizarre. That's just, it's logically just, it's contradicting. So I think, from the left, they always like to use science. But when it comes to the issue they want, then they just throw away science or logic aside. So I think people, start realizing that, some of these issues, they will come around.
Yeah.
And I think they perhaps did not see the process of the abortion. So I think everybody should look at, what a, 4 weeks old fetus will look like, 4 month old, and just go on. You see, that's a human baby.
Yes.
Think about it if you have a pet, right? And you just grab a pet and you just born, or as your dog is being born, a puppy, and you kill it. You will have at least a few hundred people marching down your house.
Exactly.
And how come we don't treat human the same way?
Exactly, yes. Okay, so final question. Tell us a little bit about your faith background.
My faith background?
Yes.
Yes. I attended church for over 15 years. And then for the first 10, I really didn't connect with the Lord. I'm very ashamed to say that. I always said at the back of the church, thinking, Pastor, you're kind of a little long today. I didn't want to listen because I owned the company and then I'm elected. And, I think I have a good family life. All I wanted to do is, I think I'm a good person just by coming to church on a weekly basis, contribute a little bit here and there. I'm a good Christian. But I was so wrong. I was so wrong. And in 2017, July, God actually opened my eyes. I lost my wife to a car accident on 20th of July 2017. And since her passing, I have seen 24 other people die within 4.5 years. And through my struggles, I asked Lord, why am I suffering through this? It was because I was too stubborn. I didn't want to listen. I didn't want to obey. And he cracked this thick skull of mine. And now I'm 100% obeying. That's why I just gave my business away without hesitation. Because I believe he had me here for a reason. I should have gone with her. I was supposed to be in the car, but I didn't go that day. So, but she made it, I did not. So I wanted to dedicate the rest of my life just to serve. So when he called, in fact, let me tell you a story. When I registered to run for this office, within half an hour, I got a threatening phone call. Somebody higher up in politics. He said, Eric, we're disappointed you're running for this office. We're going to come attack you, so you know. But in fact, he told my supporters that he's going to come and destroy me. And this is my reply to him. I said, wow, news travel really fast. It's only been half an hour. But when God called, I will not stop until he tells me so.
Right.
But since I'm a Christian, I will not counterattack. So good luck to you. So now here I am. My faith is very strong. I'm a Christian on fire. You could probably hear it from my voice. So I don't need any more money. I don't need fame. All I want is make sure that our government is serving and protecting and following God. And that's what I'm about, and then that's what I would do. In fact, the first day I took office as mayor, that's an address to the whole city, that God is in charge of the city now.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that God allowed me to still be here to serve, and I just want to continue to move forward.
Oh, Eric, that was wonderful. And I see in you and I hear it, you're a humble man, willing to do what God has called you to do. So thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
being with us.
Thank you for having me here.
You're welcome. So let's move on to my friend Jessica, who I've known for many, many years.
Hi,
We've
Gina.
been out in the trenches, showing up at different events. She's been faithful to stand up and speak up. And Jessica, I know that you're currently sitting on City Council and serving as Mayor Pro Tem for the City of Whittier, but you're the candidate for the Assembly's 56th Assembly District.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about your district.
Well, Gina, thank you, first of all, for having us here today for me. To be here is a great privilege and honor. So, and I so respect the work that you've done
Thank you.
here following the call that God has put on you. I mean, I look at you and I think, gosh, she's so knowledgeable. She should be running for office.
Oh, no.
But
it's not
anyway,
my calling.
Oh, I know, but I think very highly of the work you've done, and so do many, many people. It's a huge influencer, it's gonna gain even more traction, I think. So, in any case, what was the question?
Tell us about your district.
Okay, my district. Okay, it's pretty much encompassed within Eric's district. So, it's Whittier, La Habra Heights, Hacienda Heights. Pico Rivera is new to the district. All of that area right there, La Puente, El Monte, or South El Monte, I should say. So all of that area right there, that's our district. So it's primarily Hispanic. We have a huge Hispanic population, and about maybe 1/3 or less is either Asian or Caucasian, or I should say white.
And so when you say Hispanic, are you saying Spanish speaking? Are they bilingual? Or what's the makeup of the Hispanic community?
Well, however, I guess they collect the data or the census. Everybody is considered Hispanic, I guess, if you have a Hispanic surname, I would believe, or if you identify as Hispanic.
Are you Spanish speaking?
No, I'm not.
Okay,
I'm
well,
not.
join the crowd.
Oh, gosh.
Another Hispanic that doesn't speak Spanish.
Oh, I know. And we suffer, don't we?
Yes, we do.
We suffer because, I'll tell you what, my mother, I'll tell you a little bit about this. She came from Texas, right? My father was from Colorado. They both spoke Spanish. So they made the decision. They wanted us to know how to speak English well. They wanted us to feel very comfortable speaking English. And also, it was an easy way for them to keep Spanish as their secret language. So
I live that.
Right?
That's exactly my story.
Exactly. So, and so all throughout my life, people have either taken it for granted because, I present as Hispanic, that I speak Spanish, and they get angry sometimes if I don't.
Yeah.
That I can't.
And you feel like, gosh, I really should take some Spanish speaking lessons, don't you? I always say I'm going to do that, but I haven't.
Well, I'll tell you what, I did take Spanish in high school, but it didn't sink in very well.
Okay. Okay, well, that's okay. We'll
me.
vote for you anyway.
Thank you, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your experience in your city. You're serving on city council, mayor
Yes.
pro tem. Tell us about that experience.
It has been very interesting. When I took office, that's immediately when the whole COVID shutdown began. So I never had a normal day up until a few months ago in terms of actually being in a live city council meeting.
Oh.
It was all done virtually. My swearing in was done virtually. And so it was very, very interesting how everything rolled out. We had to confront situations like the businesses failing in our community. How are we going to deal with the spread of COVID in our community? So there were so many new issues that aren't normally something that city councils have to deal with. So luckily, we had some like-minded people on our city council, and we decided that what we were going to do was open up our promenades to allow restaurants to open up outside of the restaurant so they could have outdoor seating. We gave them grants to keep those businesses afloat, and lo and behold, they were able to weather the storm. And we're talking about a year and a half of this going on. And so it's been really, really good. God has led us through that storm.
So you're used to making big decisions when it comes to things like COVID, dealing with the
Yes.
budgets of financing what the
Right.
businesses are able to do with these grant monies, and hopefully you were able to keep a lot of businesses open in
Yes,
your
well,
community.
it really, really was good. And then, of course, we had the George Floyd debacle, and that affected cities that had nothing to do with what happened, back east. And unfortunately, we had people who were protesting in our cities. In our city, we had homeless protesters on our front lawn at City Hall, and they really wanted to break apart our city. They were protesting against our police officers, and we had to stand strong and say, listen, our police department, they're doing a fantastic job. Why should they have to suffer because of something that happened way back east? No, we're not going to deal with this. We're not going to defund our police department. We're not going to cut off our nose to, spite somebody else's face. We're not going to do that. And so we stood strong, and lo and behold, we have a very strong police department. They're loved within our community. They have so much respect for our police chief, Chief Abar. And then we also he comes to this church,
Okay.
Dominic Geraldo. So,
Okay.
yeah, he's amazing.
Okay, so it seems like a lot of the issues that you've had to deal with as a city council member, you'll be dealing with in the assembly also.
Yes.
So tell us about why you're running.
Well, we have to stand up, and we need to fight these leftist policies that are really destroying our families, our communities, our businesses, our livelihoods. They're destroying California. I mean, California used to be the land of opportunity, sunshine, oranges. Yeah, let's go to California. And now businesses are fleeing California. This is, I think, this last, when they took the census, that's the first time that California is actually, dipped in terms of population. We actually lost a representative to Congress over
Yes.
the dip in population. Why? Why are they leaving? We have the best weather in the country, right?
Absolutely.
So, but they're leaving because of taxation. They're leaving because of crime. They're leaving because of the liberal policies. They don't want their children injected with what's going on in education right now. They're saying, we've had it. We've had enough. And they're leaving. They're getting better jobs. They have better tax brackets in other states that don't even have, taxation. So instead of encouraging those businesses to stay, instead of making circumstances easier for them, instead of improving our education. I mean, California, our education is like at or near the bottom,
Yes,
right? In
it
terms
is.
of accomplishment, and they're indoctrinating our children. So we need to get these policies straight. And I'll say this, one of the reasons that I got involved in politics at all was because I saw the destruction that they were wreaking in our public school systems. I saw some of the literature that actually Real Impact put out there showing the books that they're putting into the curriculum, that they're allowing our little kids to read. I mean, I don't know about you, but we were so much more innocent growing up. And I don't even think, I mean, you take a look at the generations going back, we protected the innocence of our children. Why? Because children are not able to handle.
They're not adults.
Yes. And even adults can have trouble
Exactly.
handling it, right?
We
And
didn't
yet-
like it.
Yes. And so we're going to put those things in the hands of little babies who can't even think properly for themselves, you know? So, I don't know if that answered your question.
It does. But so once you get to Sacramento,
Yes.
if you had your choice, what would be some of the committees that you would like to sit on?
Well, I think I would like to sit on health, education, and public safety. So,
Okay. And you have a background in that, or
well,
that's your interest?
those are my interests, but I think that those are some of the things that really need to be remedied. Some of these things that they're doing in the name of health or for the population are very, very detrimental. For example, and I know this is a controversial subject, and you'll have people in your audience who will who have divided opinions on COVID and the vaccinations and all of that stuff. But COVID is an experimental vaccination, and to put that into our population without adequate testing to find out what are the long-term effects on birth rates, on fertility, that you know that there's a problem with myocarditis, and all of these other health, blood clots all over, people dropping dead, young people, SADS, sudden adult death syndrome,
Right.
where young, healthy people are dropping dead.
Yes.
And what is the commonality or difference between this year and this year? Is there's only one thing. Shall I name it? It's it's the vaccination.
Yeah.
That's the only thing that's changed in those populations. So I'm very concerned about those types of things. And also you have our governor, who basically is still able to govern by fiat, you know.
Yes, he is.
So we need to stop that whole thing of a governor just given free reign to hand down edicts. And
Absolutely.
so there are so many reasons why I
Right.
want to get there. But public safety, that's a whole other issue. We're not going to become safer in our society with fewer police officers. The only thing that's going to make us safer is people turning their hearts over to the Lord.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the only thing that is really going to change
And in the
our
meantime,
society.
we need law enforcement.
Yes, and in the meantime, we need law enforcement, but we can put as many laws as we want to on the books. But if we don't have people who are willing to follow them, to follow moral behavior, it doesn't make a difference. We're going to need more and more prisons, jails, officers. We can't stem the tide. The only thing that can really change us here in California and really turn things around is the Lord. That's it.
Absolutely.
So, church, you have a job to do.
Absolutely. So, same question to you. Are you pro-life? And I know the answer, but
Oh,
you
yeah,
answer it.
absolutely. I'll tell you a little something. I was adopted as an infant, and I have two brothers. They were also adopted as well. My birth parents, I'm not quite sure why they gave me up for adoption, but the thing is that my adoptive parents were unable to have their own children. So, and I'll tell you this, it's funny. Up until I became born again, I was pro-choice. I really was. I believed the liberal lie that said, oh, it's not a real human being. It's just a blob of tissue. I believe that. And I thought, why shouldn't women, if they're going to have this, this pregnancy, why shouldn't they be able to abort if it's going to really wreck their lives? Why shouldn't they? But I didn't understand all of the other ramifications that follow from abortion. But you know what changed my mind and my heart? I still wasn't born again, but we had I was at the head of of a a committee, and we had an auditorium full of people. We invited pro-life and pro-abortion people to speak on just topical issues of the day. And one of them showed that the pro-life attorney asked if she could show a short film. So she showed a film, and it was the dismembered pieces of aborted babies. And you could hear a pin drop in that auditorium.
Right.
It was silent. And I walked out of there with my mind completely changed on that issue, because I saw facts in front of me. That's not a blob of tissue. That's a human being. That's a baby's body. So I had to change my mind. Any other argument fails against that. I was presented with the evidence.
Absolutely.
And so I've become more and more staunchly pro-life. There is no reason to take another human being's
Yeah,
life,
absolutely.
an innocent human being.
with all of the available sonograms and everything that we have, this generation has the benefit of understanding that it truly is a human being in
Yeah.
the womb. So now let's finish off by you telling us a little bit about your faith background.
Well, I was raised Catholic, and I love the Catholic Church. I enjoyed learning about God. I enjoyed learning about the Ten Commandments. But there were some issues that I didn't quite understand. I didn't understand. I feel sorry for my mom, because I asked her a lot of questions that she couldn't answer. And, like, for example, the parading through the church with, these, it was like a canopy. And I was like, why are they doing that? She couldn't answer. So I had a lot of unanswered questions growing up. And finally, at one point, I had a friend of mine who was a born-again believer. And she was a single mom. And what happened was that she said, she would tell me about her relationship with the Lord, and she would say, oh, yeah, the Lord told me this. And I prayed, and the Lord answered my prayer. And I'd look at her, and I'd think, you're cuckoo. I like you, but I think you're a little off. And what was funny was that I knew she had a real relationship with the Lord. And eventually, it's just like salt. They talk about salt. It makes you thirsty. Well, I was getting pretty thirsty, and I wanted to know more about her faith. And so she was not at all closed about it. And then I had another friend that it was so funny, because she had gotten a job, and at that time I was feminist, right? I was pro-woman, let's go. And she had gotten a great promotion, and so I thought I was doing her, I thought I was being a good friend, and I said, oh, you're doing great things for women. And it was so funny, because I'll never forget, she turned and she looked at me, and she stopped, and she said, I'm just glad that my father is giving me enough money so that I can go out and do his will. And I looked at her, and I was shocked. And that I still thought she was crazy, right? But that perspective just kept going around and around and around in my head. And lo and behold, a couple weeks later, I had a conversation with my other friend. And I said, how is it that you have this relationship with the Lord? And she said, oh, all we have to do is pray. And, and it was funny, because the following day, we prayed that. We went back to our hotel room. We prayed. And then my life was different after that point. I knew the Lord was with me. I knew he was walking with me. And the world looked completely different.
Right.
And I've heard this. It's kind of funny that Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, how her life is black and white, and then all of a sudden at that point in the movie, she goes out and it's all in color. That's how I felt. And I haven't always been the best Christian myself. I wish I could say, oh yeah, every day I've been, such a great Christian. But I'll tell you what, I know the Lord has never left me. And so that's That's what led me to where I am today. The Lord completely changed my perception of life, of what's important, what's not important. And I learned that where the word conflicts with what I think or what the world thinks, I have to look at what the word says. And what God says is what's true. I can always count on His word to be true. And the older that I am, and I'm getting older and older and older, every single circumstance in my life, I can look at it through that lens and say, oh, geez, God was right there too. You know, I mean, there's a reason why, and I don't say this, I've been divorced, okay? There's a reason why God hates divorce. Because it hurts, especially the children. And it hurts, it scars us all. So everything that God says is true. There are reasons why God says what he says in His Word. So.
Well, I'm very encouraged. Thank you for that testimony. It was powerful. And I'm very encouraged by both of you and your willingness to stand up as Christians and take on the world, really, because the world doesn't like what you have to say. Your views are in complete opposition to what's going on in Sacramento, and you're taking the slings and arrows, and I applaud you for that, and thank you so much for joining us. But now what we're going to do is we're going to bring Kelly in to join our discussion. And I will say that this young mother has truly impressed me, and she has been making such an impact. She is one that has been actually gaining some really important national media attention because of the research that she's done in exposing what's going on in our public school system. And she is delving deep into legislation and to organizations and the move behind like the CDC and what they're doing in our state, in our public schools. And a lot of people actually do not know what is happening. So Kelly is the host of a great podcast that I am going to encourage you to tune into. It's called A Time to Stand. And she's discussing all of these important issues and mostly focused on education. But it's really important that she talks about these things because critical race theory, SEL, social emotional learning, and all of these other things that are going on, sex ed in our public schools, it's really been a shocker to us these last few years that these things have been brought in through Sacramento and forced upon us. And she has some great information to share. But Kelly, tell us a little bit about yourself and who you are, what you're doing, and why you're doing it.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for having me. It's so nice to be here because this was home church when we lived down here and attended college. I am a mom of 2 children. My husband and I have been married for over 18 years, and we were in the public school system with our kids. My husband and I had each grown up in the public school system, and our children were in there as well. I was volunteering frequently, room mom, PTA, all these things that I thought at the time were good. But I quickly saw a shift and started learning about some concerns. It was first social emotional learning that kept me up late at night after the kids would go to bed, reading and researching until sometimes even 3 a.m. to try and grasp what was going on and then get our kids opted out of that program. Then boom, the comprehensive sexuality education came. And it's been a journey. And we ended up deciding at the end of 2019 to take our kids out of the public school and venture into this whole world of homeschooling, which to my surprise, having been raised in public school, has been a blessing. I never thought it would be. I was the one that needed convincing. And in the midst of this journey and connecting with parents all throughout the state, it really made me see that there's a bigger situation, there's a bigger agenda at stake for our children, for our nation. And so that propelled me to keep going. Despite our kids being out of the homeschool, I'm compelled to do what I can do to help. And what I'm doing now with the podcast, with just getting the information out there. I think of that scripture verse that talks about not having anything to do with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather to expose it. And we are to be salt and light. And in doing this, I hope to shed light on so many issues that most of the public is not aware of yet, and join so many others like yourself who are doing this important work. So when I was researching last year, I was continuing to look into social emotional learning, which is marketed as educating the whole child, which is a whole philosophy in and of itself. And in searching for that, I came across the Center for Disease Control's website. And it was in searching there that I learned of this. It's called the WSCC model, WSCC, the whole school, whole community, whole child. And that's where I really began to start learning that it's not just education that they're after. They're actually combining health and education.
And it's surprising that it's coming from the CDC. Was that not a shocker to you? I mean, I thought the California Department of Education and their radical agendas, they can write bad policy on their own, but now they've brought in the federal government.
Right.
And tell us the role that the CDC is playing in the state of California.
Yeah, absolutely. The Center for Disease Control has joined with an organization called ASCD, that's the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, which typically goes by the acronym now. But the CDC has joined with education for both education equity, which is a word, if your audience has heard, is not the way that we really want things. This is equal outcomes, the way this is applied. And to also join education and health for health equity. So we have those words being...
Okay, so explain equity and what you mean. I know what it means, but tell our audience.
Absolutely.
The equality and equity and all those words and how they use them nowadays.
Equality is having, typically has been understanding that we have equal opportunities afforded to us. But equity is balancing the system so that there are equal outcomes. And that means that they may overlook one person in terms of, advancing someone else, not necessarily on qualifications or skills. And I've talked with multiple teachers who have reported to me that they're concerned with even grade inflation happening just because of equity. And in the terms of health equity, there's actually doctors that have talked to me about going through critical race theory training in their medical field. And we're seeing more and more journals reporting on that kind of content. And so it's not something that our nation has been founded on. They're really implementing a new strategy and a new plan that is backed by an ideology of equal outcomes. So we're looking at a completely different mindset entirely. We think about hiring for a job even. So hiring for equity is going to be very different than hiring based on someone's qualifications and skill set and abilities. Hiring for equity might be that somebody who is considered disadvantaged from a disadvantaged group based on, this is some big words, but intersectionality, that wheel of that some of the kids are learning in school, a wheel of power and privilege, where based on their religion, based on their sex or gender identity, they say, or based on their ableism, they say. So many different factors are played into now a variety of I would say hiring and many other things. And so that being applied nationwide in a variety of fields and sectors should be a concern to all of us. But it was a shock with the CDC being involved because they want to turn every school into a community school. That's the aim. That's the strategy. They're starting now with California. It's a currently $3 billion initiative that's in our budget to grant to various schools. They're applying for grants to become these health clinics and whatnot. But Gavin Newsom, our governor, has just promised to work towards another $1.5 billion towards these grants. And they've held a conference just in June, earlier in June in Los Angeles, where they were discussing community schools and had multiple plans surrounding not just equity, but the critical race theory type
It's a
implementation.
complete package that is going to be funded
Yeah.
under the WSC program. The acronym, explain what that stands for.
Sure, the acronym WSCC, whole school, whole community, whole child. And what that means is that they're actually leaving the idea that school systems are solely for academic learning, but it is adding on social, emotional, psychosocial, and health and nutrition and all these other things. And with that, what they envision every school campus looking like, so not just the district itself, but every school campus,
At all levels or just high school?
all levels.
Okay.
They are aiming towards, they want every single school to be a community school, which can also be used interchangeably as a healthy school. I've seen that as well. They want a health clinic, they want dental, and these psychological counseling and social services. And if you go on the CDC's website, it lists out their 10 main components of this model, which was added to from an older model called coordinated school health. From the new model, they have actually a whole diagram. You can go into a virtual community school, and it operates very much like a game where you can go into each classroom, you can go into the health clinic, and then you can interact with various things within the room. There's a telephone. You can pull out a cabinet. It comes to the forefront of the screen. It says medical records. And the question we should be asking when we are looking at all of these things is, what does this word mean to this group of people? Because that's one of the things that I'm seeing change is language. I'm seeing a word like health for various groups is now a very loaded term. And what health means to us might be something completely different now to the Center for Disease Control. And the idea that these medical records are right there. Imagine your school has your child's educational records of their grading and all of that, but now the school keeping your child's medical records, well, that's a whole other issue of concern in a sense of we're already talking about how vaccine mandates, even without parents' permission, we already know that students in the state of California can leave campus and go get an abortion without parental consent or knowledge, and an erosion of the involvement and notification and rights of parents is being chipped away. And we all have to be aware of this, and it's unbelievable.
So when you say health, we know what health means, but explain what they mean by health. So when you have this clinic set up in this school, talk about some of the things that they want to provide, some of the services they want to provide to the students that parents may not know about.
Right. HIV and STD, STI, they might call it as well, testing. Those are some of the services. They also want to include an element of sexual education. And I'm already noticing that as some states are reluctant to pass and mandate comprehensive sexuality education, this is essentially a backdoor to bring in these health services and then also be promoting on the side that same kind of sexuality education. You know, I like to say when I'm discussing this, the other side says that there's a school to prison pipeline, but what I actually see as the real concern is a school to Planned Parenthood pipeline. And that's exactly what I'm concerned of as I watch these health clinics and health centers pop up. The state of California, on the California Department of Education's website, already has recommendations for Planned Parenthood in a lot of their resources for different counties. You can go county by county and see the resources for each region, whether it's LGBTQ resources or Planned Parenthood or a segment of other community groups. And that is another component of the community school model, is that from the nucleus of every community would be the public school system, where all of these services are provided, focused on the child. And then outside of that, they would be allowing the school district to partner with more community organizations, be it cultural organizations or social service organizations.
There doesn't seem to be any limits
Right.
of who they can affiliate with and who they can bring in. So, of course, Planned Parenthood is always ready to come into our districts. And so, again, back to saying, this is health. When we all grew up in school, we all had the school nurse. But it's gone far beyond that because it's psychological also, right? They're going to talk about mental health.
Right.
They're going to talk about sexual identity. So those go far beyond what we all grew up with. And so let's talk a little bit about that, the mental health aspect of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Mental health right now is very much being included in these discussions about LGBTQ, etc. And in the midst of mental health providers being really steered towards a gender affirmative only model, as they call it. I mean, we would call it something completely different because it's very concerning what they're doing with minor children who lack the typical capacity to process all of this. But what is going on with mental health is that I see the WSCC model personally, in my opinion, intersecting with what we're already seeing in Sacramento of this, what so-called gender affirmative health care. It's very concerning because if you put in this government setting these counselors and social workers and et cetera, then what is going to happen with both of these? We have health clinics on school campus and counselors and psychologists, et cetera, social workers who may have already likely been trained in a lot of this, and then we have this gender affirmative model being pushed forward. We're really in a dangerous place in the sense of being able to parent our children, and what will they do if a parent disagrees with the school's assessments?
If they even find out what those assessments are.
Exactly.
So tell us about the age limits, about when a child can actually have care without parental knowledge.
Well, right now in middle school, a student can leave campus without parental consent or notice and go to Planned Parenthood for birth control or abortion services. As I was informed in 2019, the California Teachers Association, they lobby extensively, they're very wealthy, and they have a lot of power in the state. They stated in their June program notes that they were wanting students to be able to access what they call gender-affirming hormone therapy. And then in a quote, it stated, without the barrier of parental permission. The argument that they made was that cis students, which is their way of saying a student who is identifying with the gender they were born with or straight, that's the phrase that they're using and the terminology they believe in, that those students already get to go access abortion care, so that their argument was that hormone and that kind of therapy is equivalent to the other, and so they should, for equity, allow, and that's what's really being pushed. I know the teachers union is one of them, but we also have Planned Parenthood really encouraging this as well.
Yeah, so the student can go to any of the health centers that are going to be on campus, get the psychological, mental type of counseling. They can get birth control, abortions, and a variety of things that most parents probably wouldn't want their child to be involved in. And maybe in districts in Los Angeles or in San Francisco, Marin County, those areas, those things are probably going on already. But there are, plenty of school districts that are in complete opposition to that that kind of stuff happen. But parents really don't understand that it truly is behind the closed doors of a classroom. The teacher has full control over what this child is exposed to, not only because of comprehensive sex education, which it's legal for a teacher to bring materials into the classroom that's not approved by the school district, but now it's going to be mental health and gender identity and every other thing. Well, I was just listening to a podcast this morning and describing what's going on in New Jersey, how their curriculum laws have changed, and they're going to be able to actually say to the kids, which is happening here in California, that are you sure you're really a boy if it's a boy, and those kinds of things. And it's a complete brainwashing of our children who are so impressionable. And what advice do you have to parents in California that are now going to be dealing with these types of healthcare centers?
I think in this time that we're living in, one of the most important things is to be well informed and educated on what's going on. Be able to talk with others about that, because one of the greatest ways to challenge something when much of our mainstream media will not discuss or inform us of the objective news is to share with your community. And the next thing, when it comes to their own children, we're raising a generation to go out into this world. So we need to equip and prepare our kids. We need to be communicating with them. I know for our family, it came to a point we could no longer send them into the public school. I did not I feel that physically that they were that safe, because when they were opted out, there was concerns. They were not supervised. And then we had to go work with the attorneys to ensure that our kids were supervised when they were opted out of this social emotional learning. And then beyond that, what they were regularly being instructed in through computer lab programs, through the tablets, through the library, through the various teachers, even in music class, all their interactions had a lot of political ideology introduced. And when they're young and formative and they're growing, it is really giving them a different worldview. So I think for parents, it's really important, if you can, consider getting your kids out if possible, and look into every avenue possible. If you must keep your kids in a school system, to see what you may opt them out of and help your child to understand their rights and develop in them courage to stand.
Okay. Thank you for that information. Shocking, frightening, and just horrible for parents. So Kelly, tell us how we can find you.
Yeah, I have my website, atimetostand.me, and I also have a new Substack, atimetostand.substack.com, where I'll be writing some articles, and I am on social media, Twitter @Kelly SKE, and share a lot there as well. There's so many issues going on, and I think it's important, as discouraging as the time may be, each generation has had to face difficulties. You know, I've even thought back, you know, it's so hard. We've gone through COVID, et cetera. But there were people living in the time of crucifixion, raising kids, walking through the main, area, and they had to smell and see, and all those senses were involved in that. And then they were filling their kids. We're called as parents to really fill our children with the word and encourage them in the way they should go, so that when they're older, they do not depart from it. And one of the most important things that we can remember is to cling to the hope that is in Christ, and to keep looking unto him, the author and finisher of our faith, and really steer our children that way from a young age. We talk to them about the issues. We have real discussions with them. We provide them our biblical worldview, but most of all, we recognize that as dire as some situations we've endured seem, that each generation has something they face, and it allows us the gift to cling to the Lord and understand we're weak, but he's strong.
Absolutely. It's powerful. Thank you, Kelly. And I hope that this is the beginning of parents' journey into being more proactive in what's going on in their child's school. And using your resources to help them understand what's going on and pray about it, because it's the Lord that is going to show us the path that we should take to protect our kids. And first of all, just becoming informed. Just absorb the information. That's the beginning of it. So thank you so much for being with us, Kelly. And Jessica, tell us how we can find you.
Well, you can go to my website, martinezforassembly.org. I'm also on Instagram, and so you can find me there as well.
Okay, and Eric?
Yes, you can find me on all social media. You can even Google me, Eric Ching, but my website is ericchingforcongress.com. FOR spelled out.
Okay, guys, this has been fantastic. It's been a joy to speak with you. I'm very encouraged by you, Kelly, and all the work that you've done, and each of you just standing up. We need more people like you. If we had more people like you willing to do what you're doing, we would have a different state, a different nation. So thank you so much. And thank you all for joining us. It's been a pleasure to be with you tonight. And please share this information. People need to know about these fantastic candidates and also this important information that Kelly has shared with us tonight. So thank you all. God bless you. Bye.
Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.